For literally thousands of years, the world's greatest empires all made the exact same fatal mistake. They'd march their armies onto the Iranian plateau, totally convinced they could just wipe this ancient civilization right off the map. But time and time again, something completely unexpected happened.
So that brings us to this central puzzle, right? How can a civilization get crushed in battle over and over again, and yet somehow, in the grand scheme of things, win? It's a paradox that seems to break all the normal rules of history.
First up, you had Alexander the Great. His Macedonian phalanxes just steamrolled the Persian army and burned their magnificent capital to the ground. You'd think, okay, that's it, game over. But it was really just the beginning of a very strange pattern. Fast forward a few centuries and suddenly you have Arab armies sweeping in. They bring a new religion, Islam, and a whole new language. This wasn't just a military conquest. It was a full-on cultural and spiritual takeover.
And if that wasn't enough, after them came the Mongols. Genghis Khan's hordes were like a force of nature, a wave of pure destruction that just tore through the land, famously leaving towers of skulls in their wake. I mean, any other nation on Earth would have just vanished.
But Iran didn't vanish. No, it did something almost unbelievable. It absorbed its conquerors. Within just a few decades, these brutal invaders would be speaking Persian. They'd be building Persian-style architecture, even wearing Persian clothes. The conquered had effectively digested the conqueror.
So you have to ask, what was their secret? What was the trick? Well, the answer wasn't some new kind of sword or a faster chariot. Iran's greatest weapon, the one that guaranteed its survival, was a weapon of the mind.
At the very heart of this Iranian identity was an ancient religion called Zoroastrianism. Now, this wasn't just a faith. You can think of it as a kind of cultural technology. It taught that the entire universe was locked in a cosmic battle between good and evil, light and dark. And to be Iranian, well, that meant you were a soldier in that war, a warrior of light. And an idea like that, it forges an incredible, almost unbreakable national unity.
But maybe the most revolutionary thing Zoroastrianism did was introduce a radical new idea about time itself. See, before this, most cultures saw time as a big circle, an endless loop of repeating seasons and events. The Iranians said no. They said time is a straight line. It has a beginning, a middle, and a definitive end, which will be followed by a final judgment. It's a concept that would go on to influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and it literally shaped how the entire modern world thinks about history.
So, armed with this powerful worldview, the Iranians, led by a man named Cyrus the Great, set out to build something the world had never seen before, its very first superpower.
And the scale of this thing, it's just mind-boggling. At its peak, the Achaemenid Empire was home to 50 million people. That's nearly half of the entire population of the planet at the time. And Cyrus didn't just build this empire on brute force. His unique policy was one of respect for the cultures and religions of the people he ruled.
But look, even the greatest rulers aren't invincible. Cyrus the Great met a pretty brutal end in a battle against a nomadic people called the Macedothei. The historian Herodotus tells us their queen, Tomarus, had his head plunged into a bag of human blood, and she said, "You thirsted for blood, now drink your fill." It's a grim reminder that even the biggest superpowers can be vulnerable.
Okay, so we've all heard the story of the 300 Spartans, right? But this idea that the Greco-Persian Wars were some kind of total victory for the Greeks is, well, it's mostly a Western myth. Sure, the Persians lost some battles out in the fringes of their massive empire. So what do? They just changed tactics. They used their incredible wealth to basically pay first Athens, then Sparta to fight each other. They turned the Greeks against themselves until Persia was in a position to dictate the terms of peace. They just bought what they couldn't immediately take with an army. All of this history, this deep-seated sense of identity, it all fed into Iran's ultimate survival mechanism. This technique that we can call the art of absorption.
And this cycle is the key to the whole thing. It starts with a catastrophic military defeat, but then that deep-rooted cultural identity just refuses to die out. And finally, you get the most amazing step of all. The conquerors themselves get absorbed. They're basically culturally reprogrammed until they become patrons of the very civilization they came to destroy.
And you see this pattern play out over and over and over. Alexander the Great started wearing Persian clothes and adopting their court customs. The Arab caliphs quickly realized they couldn't possibly run their empire without Persian bureaucrats and systems of governance. And even the Mongols, after their wave of pure terror, converted to Islam and started funding the creation of magnificent Persian art. The system just worked, every single time.
This incredibly long history of defending an identity brings us right into the 20th century, and a quiet but really intense battle over a single word.
You see, for centuries, the outside world had called the country Persia. It was a name that, for Europeans, brought up images of fairy tales, magic carpets, and this kind of exotic ancient place. But in 1935, the country's leader, Reza Shah, sent a formal demand to the world. You will call us by our true name, the name we have always used for ourselves, Iran. This was a powerful declaration of modernity, a way of rejecting that colonial fantasy.
And this has created this really strange paradox that still exists today. The word Persia still floats around, but it's come to mean this romantic, mythical past of lost grandeur. Meanwhile, the word Iran is often associated with modern geopolitical tensions and really complex current events. So you have these two names for one land that are constantly fighting over how the world should see it. Which leaves us with this final thought. After 5,000 years of surviving invasions and shaping global events, maybe the greatest battle for this civilization is the one that's happening right now. It's a quiet, invisible war. A war between who they were in the past, who they are today, and how the world wants to see them.